British people apologise when someone bumps into them. They queue silently, patiently, and with quiet satisfaction. They drink an extraordinary amount of tea, and they genuinely believe that whatever the situation is, a biscuit will probably help. Today we're looking at British stereotypes, the ones that are completely exaggerated, the ones that are surprisingly accurate, and the ones that, if we're honest, are a little bit of both. We'll look at the classic image of the British person, emotionally reserved, obsessively polite, mildly eccentric, and explore why these ideas exist and where they come from. There's also a fast-paced C1 level dictation at the end, packed with natural British expressions and advanced vocabulary. So have a pen and paper ready. We do things traditionally here. Grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, and let's get into it. And if you find this useful, hit subscribe. There's a new episode every Thursday. Let's do it. Today we are talking about stereotypes. That's it. Yes. The kind of broad, exaggerated ideas that people have about different nationalities, for example. So sometimes they're not politically correct, but we don't care. We can do what we want here, you know. I think most of us are Generation X. We don't care about political correctness. We're just going to say what we want to say and use a bit of common sense. So, stereotypes. Let's start with a nationality that nobody will be offended by, Americans. Yeah, okay, when I say Americans, please, anybody from South America, that's Patricia, for example, and Jessica, when the British talk about Americans, we mean people from the USA. That's it. And a lot of people from South America get a bit offended when I talk about Americans, and they'll say, no, North Americans. But in reality, no British person would say North Americans. We just understand that if somebody says Americans, we mean people from the USA. Okay, so please don't be offended by that. Anybody from the South America, we would name the country. So if you're from Argentina, we'd say you're Argentinian. If you're from Colombia, we'd say you're Colombian. So that's it. So we're talking about people from the USA, classic American stereotypes. I'll start. They're loud. They're very loud, overly friendly. Hi, I'm Bob. I didn't ask. You know, when it comes to a British person, you know, we're completely different, aren't we? But Americans, they're loud, they're overly friendly, they're obsessed with peanut butter. I'm just guessing now. Can you give me any more? They're overweight. Thank you, Agnes. Yeah, they're certainly overweight. They apparently think Belgium is the capital of the UK, probably. Well, that's what happens, isn't it? You know, they say, hey, you say, hey, where are you from? And I'll say, I'm from the UK. Oh, I got a friend in UK. Well, Belgium, actually. But anyway, so they're hopelessly bad at geography. Yeah, so there you go, a few stereotypes for Americans. Now, what about you guys? What would you say are some stereotypes that people have about your country and about your people? So when you're answering in the chat here, I want you to put the country and then the stereotype, okay? So what are some stereotypes that people have about your country? And then, of course, we'll turn the spotlight on the British later. But just as we're continuing to warm up, tell me here in the chat, what stereotypes do people have about your country? Mirella says, in Italy, lazy. Okay. Agnes says, France, arrogant. Okay. In Italy, they move their hands all the time. Mamma mia. Mamma mia. Yeah. Anything else? Spain, too noisy. Okay. Buenos Aires, very warm, like Italians. Okay. It's a nice stereotype. Any other? It's interesting that you said Buenos Aires and not Argentina in general. Maybe they're completely different from the rest of Argentina. I know it's a very disparate country. Anyone else like to tell me a stereotype from their country before we continue? Okay, Turkish, very noisy. Okay, so you got the general idea then. So now we're going to turn the spotlight on the British. So go on, be ruthless. Ruthless, there's a word for you. It's a nice word. I'll put this in the PDF that accompanies this exercise. Okay, if someone is ruthless, then I'll put it in the chat here. Someone who is completely without pity or compassion, especially when pursuing a goal or making a judgment. Ruthless. So please feel free to be ruthless with your British stereotypes. I will not be offended. I will not be offended. What's a British? For example, they're obsessed with tea. Snobbish. Oh, okay. Yeah, quite possibly. Anyone else? These snobby Brits. These snobby tea obsessed, emotionally repressed Brits. What's another stereotype for British people? And by the way, snob is a great word, Agnes. That's a noun. So you could say this person is a snob, but the adjective is snobbish. I think we also say snobby. Snobbish or snobby. Okay, this is the adjective. Marina says, I think they're extremely polite, as you mentioned once. They say sorry all the time. Yeah, it's true. We do say sorry a lot. It's quite, I really notice it when I go back to the UK now. Elif says we're funny people. Yeah, they have a good sense of humor. Always ready to make a joke, even at someone's funeral, probably. Okay, yeah. Permanently apologetic. Yeah, I agree with that. Or maybe secretly we're furious behind the politeness. It's just this facade. Okay, so today's dictation is going to be about British stereotypes. British stereotypes. So if you've never done one of these dictations before, let me explain how it works. I'm going to dictate a short passage of 100 words on the subject of British stereotypes. So I want you to listen to what I say and write it on a piece of paper. So you will need a piece of paper and you will need a pen. Now, I'm going to do it slightly differently today. I want to try something, okay? I'm going to read the whole text first at normal speed. When I do this, you should not try to write anything because it'll be too fast. Then I'm going to go back and read each sentence twice and pause to give you time to write, okay? And then I'll show you the text. How about that? So we're going to try it the other way around today, just to see how it is. You can tell me if you think it works. Is it a good method? So a piece of paper, so then you get an idea of the whole subject, okay? So you can relax, just listen as I read out this text. No writing now, okay? British people are often portrayed as tea-drinking, queue-loving, emotionally reserved creatures who apologise far too much, even when someone else steps on their foot. They're said to hide discomfort behind dry humour, rely on understatement to downplay everything, and consider complaining a national pastime, as long as it's done politely. From the outside, it may seem that they care more about the weather forecast than world events, and that a cuppa is the solution to all problems. While these stereotypes are exaggerated, they reflect certain cultural quirks that many Brits embrace, with a wry smile, of course, and probably a biscuit. Okay, so it's probably about a B2/C1. Some of the vocabulary maybe C1. So get your pen, listen carefully, and write what I say. British people are often portrayed as tea drinking, comma. British people are often portrayed as tea drinking, comma. Tea drinking is hyphenated, okay? Q-loving, comma, emotionally reserved creatures. Q-loving, also hyphenated, comma, emotionally reserved creatures. Who apologise far too much, dash. Who apologise far too much, dash. Even when someone else steps on their foot, full stop. Even when someone else steps on their foot, full stop. They're said to hide discomfort behind dry humour. They're said to hide discomfort behind dry humour. Comma. Rely on understatement. Rely on understatement. To downplay everything. To downplay everything. Comma. And consider complaining a national pastime. And consider complaining a national pastime. Dash. As long as it's done politely. As long as it's done politely. Full stop. New paragraph. From the outside, comma, it may seem like. From the outside, comma, it may seem like. They care more about the weather forecast. They care more about the weather forecast than world events, comma. Than world events, comma. And that a cuppa is the solution to all problems. and that a cuppa is the solution to all problems. Full stop. While these stereotypes are exaggerated, comma, they reflect certain cultural quirks They reflect certain cultural quirks that many Brits embrace. Dash. With a wry smile, of course, and probably a biscuit. With a wry smile, of course, and probably a biscuit. Full stop. End of dictation. Okay, just relax your wrists. Take a breather. And I'm going to read the whole passage again to you in a minute so that you can listen and fill in any gaps that you may have. Maybe you didn't hear everything. I went quite fast and I read quite long chunks of the text. Okay, although I don't think the vocabulary was necessarily too difficult. So I'm going to read it again at normal speed. If there are a couple of words missing, then you can fill them in now. And if you didn't understand or you just want to check what you've written, listen carefully now. British people are often portrayed as tea-drinking, queue-loving, emotionally reserved creatures who apologise far too much, even when someone else steps on their foot. They're said to hide discomfort behind dry humour, rely on understatement to downplay everything, and consider complaining a national pastime, as long as it's done politely. From the outside, it may seem like they care more about the weather forecast than world events, and that a cuppa is the solution to all problems. While these stereotypes are exaggerated, they reflect certain cultural quirks that many Brits embrace, with a wry smile, of course, and probably a biscuit. Okay, how was it? Too fast, too slow, too long, too short, easy, difficult, so-so. I'll show you the text in a minute and then you can check what you've written. So you will see the text in a few seconds, but first let's see what everybody thought. Great, not bad, so-so, fast but not too difficult, no sweat, man. So-so, said Patricia. Okay. What about you, Agnes? How did you get on? Just curious to know. I think okay. All right. So I'm going to show you the text now, ladies, and you can check what you've written. See if there are any spelling mistakes, maybe some double letters or, you know, whatever. And of course, if you have any questions about the vocabulary or anything, you can ask me now. I'm here. So British people are often portrayed as tea drinking, queue loving. So we got these two words are hyphenated because they constitute a single adjective, tea drinking, queue loving, emotionally reserved creatures who apologise far too much, even when someone else steps on their foot. They're said to hide discomfort behind dry humour. That's, of course, the UK spelling of humour. In the North America, they spell it with just an O, okay? Because you are not important in America. Ha 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 ha. Ha. Okay, behind dry humor. Rely on understatement to downplay everything and consider complaining a national pastime, as long as it's done politely. From the outside, it may seem that they care more about the weather forecast than world events, and that a cuppa, yes, this word we use, meaning a cup of tea, a cup of tea, but we often say a cuppa in slang just to mean a cup of tea. A cup of tea with John. A cuppa. A cuppa is the solution to all problems. While these stereotypes are exaggerated, they reflect certain cultural quirks that many Brits embrace, with a wry smile, of course, and probably a biscuit. So, how did you get on, ladies? Do you have any questions? Elif said she wrote it like this. Well, that's very good. Well done, Elif. Anybody have any problems, any questions, anything that's not clear? I'm more than happy to answer. Also, rye. Okay. So if you, we've come across this word before, actually, in one of the previous, I can't remember where it was now. Maybe my mum did it, maybe on a Monday, with a have a word with Dot. Anyway, so the word wry is an adjective, and it defines a type of humor that is dry, ironic, and often sort of subtly mocking, especially in difficult or awkward situations. For example, he gave a wry smile when asked how his disastrous holiday went. How was your disastrous holiday? Well, you know, wry. So it's kind of like clever, understated, and a little cynical. Just a second, the baby's crying. Where is she? Oh, okay. Ivy, look, I'm in the middle of doing a dictation. You promised me you wouldn't do that. Yeah, I've had a word with her. She said that she got the time wrong. She meant to start crying at past, but obviously she can't read the time properly yet. So but there's a lesson to learn, Ivy. Don't make promises you can't keep. I know it's only a month, but anyway, where were we? Laurie asked what quirks mean. So quirks are like idiosyncrasies, unusual characteristics, maybe charming characteristics, something that maybe is a little bit eccentric about your personality. Okay, so a little quirk. It comes from the adjective is quirky, which again is kind of like it's the adjective form of what I just said. Okay, people. Oh, I wrote apology as it's only a noun, I reckon. Yeah, apology is a noun. Yeah, apologise. Apologetic is an adjective. To apologise is the verb, and apology is a noun. Thank you very much. Have a lovely evening. Look after yourselves. Look after your family. Take care. Bye.